Good evening, or good afternoon. Bob Grant,
Dan Bump.
two civics teachers here at Emerald Coast, 7th graders. Civics and what we're
Civics PLC meeting.
Civics PLC meeting.
And we are meeting here so that we can reach the goal that we have in a school improvement plan for our achievement level on our EOC test for civics.
May 16th.
All right. And Mr. Grant. All right, looking at our pacing guide, both of us are in pretty much the exact same spot in our progression. And if I'm correct, we should both have basically finished up doing political parties and a little bit on elections and campaigns.
Correct.
And so for the fourth quarter, what we have left to do for the rest of the year is whatever we haven't covered with campaigns, elections, and voting rights, which covers the unit we have on influencing government and law of the court system and state and local government. And I believe both of us have covered all of our Supreme Court cases so far that we're supposed to cover to be prepared for the EOC.
Right.
So we really don't have that much left to cover. It looks like it's like 2.5 units, basically what it amounts to. So looking at the calendar, it looks to me like we should be able to be finished somewhere around the middle of April with teaching curriculum
Right.
for the year, and that would get us to the point of where we're ready to review. Does that sound about right to you?
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly how I have it.
Now, just looking at where we're sitting with our data from our mid-test that we took when we came back from Christmas break.
It's a sample EOC, and it comes from Florida Virtual, I believe.
Yeah, Florida Virtual Schools Practice EOC. I've used that test ever since I started teaching civics, and what I found is that my kids will actually score higher on the real EOC than they do on that practice test. So to me, it's a really good gauge as far as where we're at and letting us know what it is that we have to teach.
That's kind of our STAR test of sorts of where the kids are at.
Mm-hmm. Now, I gave my test right when we came back from January with your kids when we were biophilia, where half the schools, half the 7th grade was going on biophilia, and I kept half of them with me one week. And then the next week I had the other half, and I administered the EOC practice test. And the data from my class, using All-In Learning's sliding scale, where you can adjust your pass rates and things like that to see where you're at. If we had taken the EOC that day, with me only having 2/3 of the curriculum taught to the kids, my pass rate would have been around 72% with 137 students tested. And then breaking it down even further, students that were within 10 points of passing, 10 percentage points of passing, that would have given me another 16-17%, which I pretty much anticipate anybody that's in the two categories I mentioned right there to, by the time we get to the EOC, to be at the threshold of being able to pass the EOC, which would put me somewhere around 86-87%. And that's with 137 of my students tested. How's your data looking right now?
My campus average was 60%, 60, and the number, help me find it on this page.
It is,
the ones that were close to that.
Should be 21%.
21%.
And again, you'd expect that number added with your first number would be what your pass rate would be, which would put you at no less than 81%.
Right.
And then your next group below that, you're sitting at about 13%, which is kids that are within another 10 percentage points of passing, so 20 percentage points from passing. and my rate in that category is around 11%. So we're fairly close together as far as our overall pass rates, which is pretty good. Now, as far as what our plan is when we take the third time when we take that practice EOC, there's 3 reports that we want to generate. The first one is this report right here, which is by standard. And I'll walk this up here to the camera a little bit better. I don't know if you can see this, but this is what I printed out from the midterm test. And it tells us by standard the percentage that the students scored on that particular standard. And I've got it sorted from most proficient to least proficient. And what I look at this report for is to gauge overall my class, what they got and what they didn't get, so that when I get down to crunch time as far as reviewing, I can make a more educated review of what they need, because I know what they know and what they don't know from this report as a whole class. So this is one report that we would definitely need to run after the third practice test, after we finish teaching all the curriculum. So we're talking, third week of April when we're going to take this test. And then the second report that I would run is an individual report for each student, which tells you how a particular student did on each standard. They're either going to get 100, a 50, or a 0, because each standard on the EOC has 2 questions max. And so what I usually do with my students with this is I will print a copy of this for each one of my students, and I will have them highlight in one color all the ones that they got a 0 on, and in a different color all the ones they got a 50 on. And I always believe in bang for the buck when it comes down to putting in the time for a student to review for the test and whatever. So I always have them look at the standards that had 2 questions on it first, rather than the ones with 1 question. And then usually I'll have a list, list of activities that they have to complete individually. A must would be doing the Quizlet Learn for the vocabulary for that standard that we have loaded into Quizlet already. And then there's also some resources on the FJCC site that has some videos and questions and things that they can look at and watch, and that gives them their individualized plan of attack. And so I have them prioritize that. And so a lot of that will be individualized as far as what they have to do. And then as far as whole group, I'll work through the whole class proficiency data and work on those and hit the major parts for each one of these standards to reteach what apparently they didn't learn. Now the good news is when I look at this report from the second administration of the test from my group, most of the things that they scored the lowest on were things that I hadn't covered yet, which is what I want to see.
Right.
I don't want to see too many things down here.
Stuff that you just
in the 40% or low, that things that we had already covered. So most of the stuff that's there is stuff that I hadn't covered when they had taken the test the second time. So that's good news. They did a pretty decent job of retaining the information that was already presented. You haven't run this report yet, but you'll probably want to look at that, just kind of get an idea and look at what you've covered to kind of start getting organized as what you will need to plan on going back over.
Oh, exactly. I mean, that gives you a roadmap of at least the important standards. For instance, for a class, yours might be different than mine, or it might be the same as mine as far as what you need to hit first in review.
All right, so that covers all of our mid-test, plan for post-test. Now we have exams on, next week, Tuesday and Wednesday, and Monday's going to be the big review day for that exam. Correct. Obviously. Right. I just tested my political parties unit today, So Monday will be my only review day. I have planned for Monday, I've got a 93 question quizzes that I created, and I'm going to use that in quizzes and use it as the teacher-led activity. So we're almost, it's like a Kahoot, basically what it amounts to. All the
Right.
kids answer the same question at the same time. That allows us to discuss each question as they answer, and I can kind of gives me a good poll of the room, because I'll know how many kids got it right and how many kids got it wrong immediately on each question to allow me to discuss that. And then I'll also put that quizzes out as a homework assignment for them that they can work on their own outside of class, because I don't think we'll get through 93 questions in a 53-minute class. So what are your plans as far as reviewing for your
Got a
exam?
Kahoot originally that I created from the third quarter information, the standards from 2.7, 2.8 on back to the different branches of government.
Mhm.
So we're going to be doing a Kahoot, 50 question Kahoot. Again, we'll try to get through as many as possible. On Monday, the kids love Kahoot, and from there, I made copies of it and put it in teams so they can practice that. So in effect, what I did is created, like you did, a study guide
Mhm.
for the test, and the
Okay.
questions will come from that Kahoot.
All right. Okay. Now, if you want to see what I have for that quiz is, I can open that up for you as far
Yeah, I
as
saw
you can
it.
copy it and
I
whatever.
saw
so.
a copy machine, and like we've been doing all year in lockstep, sharing information and stuff. I'll use some of those same questions that you did on the quizzes
Mhm.
as well.
All right. Well, what else do we need to discuss?
Well, our plan of action, and it sounds, we've
Kind of covered that.
we've touched on that,
Mhm.
going through using the hard data, meaning it's not a guessing game. It's what standards you're believing that they need to work on,
Mhm.
and then refreshing from that. We've done boot camps before
Mhm.
at the school, leading up to
Mhm.
the EOC. I believe it's the 16th or the 18th of May, which we have a little bit more time than we did last year. And having those 2-3 days a week after school,
Mhm.
and both of us, pushing, trying to get kids to attend, and then break it down with, Kahoot or Quizlet Live or whatever. Vocabulary, I think we both agree, is extremely important
Mhm.
on civics, a good handle on that vocabulary. So that is what we used last year. We
Right. Right.
to practice.
Yeah, last year was a challenge with the number of kids that we had with ILDA, and just with that test being early and the number of
Face-to-face
days that we lost to the
COVID.
teachers being out with COVID and kids being out with COVID, and attendance has been a lot better this year as far as that goes. So, and then with all kids being face to face, I would expect us to be better this year.
So, yeah, the final thing that we're doing is a boot camp preparation, do it after school,
Mhm.
leading up to the Civics EOC.
Mhm. All right. Is there anything else that you see that we need to?
No, I think,
Need to cover for right
we
now.
pretty much covered it. I think our goal is somewhere between 80 and 85%.
Mhm.
As a school to try to reach.
Mhm.
I think it's very reachable. And you just work hard, give them practice questions similar to what the EOC is. Obviously, you and I don't know what the EOC questions are. We can gauge by sample questions that FJCA or FJAA and iCivics and the rest of the apps put out, and go from there and just
Mhm.
get it done.
All righty. Okay. Well, Well, I think we pretty much covered everything we need to, so I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna go push that little button.
Right, I've taken notes and I'm watching our time, so we've been doing real good.
All righty. I hope we did what we were supposed to do.